All right, excellent afternoon to all those who are watching me across the state. And should I say the happy Eid Mubarak to all our Muslim faithfuls across the world. And they say ignorance is no excuse for delusions towards reality. And in many sectors, including health sectors, the fact that as a system we haven't reached advanced levels in health technology or discoveries doesn't make it an excuse for ignorance in addressing those health challenges. Again, I welcome you to another interesting episode of Real Talk with Kikari. May your convener, your executive producer, your scriptwriter, name it. I wear many caps on this platform. I think it's important for us to hear what On This Day initial segment asks for us. When I return, I give my 2 cents on it. Stay with me. I'll be right back. All right, many thanks for staying with us. You know, my takeaway from On This Day history segment today is that this history tells us about the advent of VAT. You know, while we understand that these taxes are being used by the government to finance some certain aspect of the economy, it is equally crucial that, you know, transparency in government, in terms of transparency, in terms of accountability, taxation system, revenue spending, expenditure are clear to the citizen who pay VAT. I think that all the doubt of on the table, you know, will be very clear to quite a number of people, and many people will definitely, you know, try to be straightforward with their tax, if I'm being real on this platform right now. Well, I think it's important for us to go to the next segment of the show. Before then, I think let's hear a word from my sponsors. When I return, we'll dive straight to the topic at hand. Stay with me, I'll be right back. All right, many thanks for staying with me. World Autism Awareness Day, observed annually on April 2nd, is a global movement dedicated to increasing understanding and accepting, or will I say acceptance, you know, and of course the support for individuals. With a study conducted in southeastern Nigeria reported a prevalence rate of 2.9% amongst children aged from 3 to 18 years. Despite this awareness, acceptance and support systems remain inconsistency across the country. Nigeria, like many other developing nations, faces unique challenges in providing adequate support and services for individuals with autism. Limited diagnosis facilities, you know, lack of specialized schools, and cultural misunderstandings, often, you know, in the earlier intervention, making it crucial to advocate for better policies and increased awareness. With the rapid rise of technology and global health initiative, innovative approaches are emerging, providing new ways to enhance education, therapy, and community integration for people with autism. On the live show today, I have a woman champion who is a journalist par excellence and has dedicated a good chunk of her career to the advocacies of autism. For this edition of Real Talk with Kike, I would explore the multifaceted world of autism, addressing the developments in healthcare, global trends, news, and of course the role of technology in providing the lives of those on the spectrum. Before we delve into Real Talk with my guest, I think it's important for us to play a profile. When we get back, you agree with me that she's the right fit to throw a lot of light on the issue at hand. Stay with me. I'll be right back. All right, let me use this opportunity to quickly usher in my guest, Mrs. Angela Oluwafunmilayo Emuwa. Emuwa, I don't know now. I think that she would correct me on the right pronunciation of her last name. It's a pleasure to have you on Real Talk with Kike today, ma'am. How are you doing today, ma'am?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Many thanks for creating time to do this with me, despite me being on holiday today. But let's just dive straight to the topic at hand. One would hurriedly wonder that how did your path as a journalist cross with autism advocacy? I must confess that when I thought about tomorrow being Autism Day, the only name that came to my mouth was you. Did you or a close person have an experience with it, or did you just suddenly dedicate your life and career to it, I don't know, along the line? I would love you to, throw light on this. I'm curious.
Okay. I'll first of all start with my surname. It's Emuwa.
Wow. Apologies for butchering the name.
Just letting you know. Okay, so and then a slight correction. I'm not actually a journalist, although I am the chairman of Punch. So my background is in the more of the administrative side of the business. I got my experience from Newswatch. I was in the advertising department, became advert manager, became corporate affairs manager. So that's kind of the area I've been in. I wrote a column as well, on fitness, that was. But anyway, how come I got into this? I am actually, from personal experience, although even before I had my son, I was involved with the late Dr. Yinka Akindayomi. I used to support her programs. I didn't know that I was going to go on this same journey. So yes, I have a 24-year-old son with autism. And that was how I got introduced to it just kind of took over my whole life. And that's how I got actively involved in advocacy.
Interesting. I don't know how to respond to you right now, but I must say that you're doing a fantastic job, with the awareness that you've created across the globe. Because honestly, when I thought about tomorrow being the annual celebration, the only person that came to mind was you, and I must say kudos for creating awareness, on the issue at hand, in as much as you had to come through it with a personal experience. But challenges such as delayed, issues like this are often occurring around 3 to 75 years of age from part of the research that I've made. And people have limited access to specialized service facilities. You know, autism, we've seen a significant rise globally. For instance, the CDC reports that approximately 1 in 36 children in the United States is identified with ASD. What factors, Ma, do you believe are driving this increase, or what does this trend does, or will I say, compared to the situation in Nigeria?
I think one of the things that is driving this increase is probably more awareness. You know, maybe in the past there wasn't as much, you know, you had a child who had certain behavioral deficiencies, and then you'd be thinking, oh, this child is wayward, they're not well brought up. When in actual fact it was autism. So I think now that everybody's aware of what autism entails, they now know that, okay, that behavior that I was seeing is actually autism. In actual fact, there are quite a few schools, if you like, that deal with this autism and special needs. There are quite a few. There are places like the Patrick Speech and Language Center, where my son actually, he was the first student to enroll there. There's schools like Green Springs, where my son also went, who have learning support units. And also, they started a school for young adults with challenges like that. And even at the local level, there was the Lagos State People's Law made it mandatory. Let me just get it now. It was mandatory that all schools, primary, secondary, and tertiary institutions must be inclusive and accessible to persons with disabilities, and have trained personnel. So I know that quite a few government schools actually have inclusive schools, inclusive units. And one of the charities I support actually, like the one in Ojuwe, we've supported that for quite a while. You know, so it's actually there's a lot more being done than you realize. There's a lot more people trained in doing therapy and assessments, and there's still a long way to go. Because in some hospitals or clinics, you take a child there, they just don't know what's going on. But I think that with collaboration with the centers that are actually trained in this in diagnosing autism, if they collaborate with them, then there'll be more progress.
Many thanks again for that insight right there. I want to deal with a misconception now, because autism is a neurodevelopmental condition characterized by differences in communication, behavior, and social interaction, as experts in this field have described based on the research I made before coming on air. However, in this part of the world where we are excessively spiritual, I like to keep it real on this platform. Some may have attributed it to a spiritual, or I don't know the kind of factors I want to say. How do you demystify this in your own situation?
I just think we need to talk about it more advocacy. For instance, with my son, I'm very, very open with about him. Like before, when I meet you for the first time, you're bound to know that I have a son with autism, because it'll come up in my conversation. I just think that there's a lot of stigma, and parents that are confused, like it's a disappointment. Okay, you're expecting this child you have your image of the kind of child that you want, and then you end up giving birth to this child. So you just think, okay, it can't be me. There must be something. You go to churches, they do deliverance, they do all sorts of things. But I think if we talk about it more, in fact, I really wish, just that the government doesn't do advocacy or stuff like that. But these are sort of things that we need to, do social to create awareness on about. And with this kind of thing, like all the institutions I said that also have started supporting children with autism, they encourage their parents to be open with their children. And I think the more you're like that, like, as I said, when I go out with my son, everybody, if he starts to behave in a way, because it's not a visual disability. You could see a child or an adult with autism and you wouldn't know until they start behaving in a certain way. So it is up to you as the parent to educate people. What I do if he starts to do something that, and people start looking, I just turn to him and say, no, 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 no. I turn to him, I talk to him nicely. You don't need to do that. Just calm down. You just make it clear that yes, there's something, but we're handling it. And it is the way you treat your child that other people will observe, and that's the way they will treat them. So that's what we need to do. We need to be more open about. Um, we need to just anywhere we go, because that's the only way. You are in this gathering, it happens. Maybe like 50 people are there. Those 50 people, when they see somebody with autism, they say, okay, that seems to be what that lady was talking about. You go to another gathering, so that's the kind of thing that we can do right now. Just be open about the situation.
Many thanks again for that submission, right? I'm getting a bit emotional right now. But I think that the key to what you've said thus far is being patient, being warm, and adaptable to their own comfort level for them to be able to communicate with others. But despite this growing awareness, that you've created and quite a few people have, the stigma surrounding this autism persists in Nigeria, often leading to a delayed, diagnosis and interventions. Even the educated ones, are less informed about autism manifestation, let alone the uneducated ones. Because doing a bit of research on this before coming on air and watching a few videos and all, and I was like, if educated people can actually be, I don't know, they need a lot of unlearning to go through this awareness for them to understand that, it can happen to anybody. But I must ask you, what strategies do you recommend to combat these misconceptions and promote a more inclusive society?
One thing I've always thought, I wish that it would be a part of, in schools, because it's at a young level when the children are young, because they're the ones that are going to grow up. Already at the older people have already, they weren't as informed, so they already have this, misconception. So they're like, they will now try to pass it on to the younger children. But if we start to address this thing at that age level, so make it a part of maybe some extracurricular class in schools. It's so important, because people with autism and other disabilities, they live with us, and they have the same rights. You cannot say, don't go here, I can't do this, I can't do that. Like I said, it's mandatory for all schools to actually accommodate children with disabilities. It is up to you as a school, as an institution, to train your teachers to make sure that you have at least one. I think it says you have to have at least one trained personnel, yes, to cater for the educational needs of children with autism and other disabilities. You don't have a right to turn them away. You're not supposed to. So, I think apart from that, that needs to be enforced, because we have a lot of laws, but it's the enforcing that is the issue. So I think that it's important to catch the young ones in all things where you want changes, like climate change. Catch them young, so that when they grow up, they will be able to accommodate these special people in society, in the community.
Again, many thanks for that elaborate submission, right? And I agree with you that all schools should be able to accommodate them. But in Nigeria, there's a notable absence of policies addressing, neurodevelopmental disorder like autism. Again, I must ask, ma'am, what steps should the government take to establish and implement effective policies that support individuals like autism and their families? Earlier when you were talking, I know that you spoke about collaboration, and I know that, I've not seen so much from the government's perspective, So what's your take on this thus far?
Sorry, what was the last sentence you said?
I said, what's your take on this thus far?
Oh gosh. Okay, well, I think you mentioned government, right?
Yes, the collaboration, with all that you've done thus far. What do you have to say regarding, how we can actually be better in addressing this issue at hand? And I mentioned that you earlier spoke about, collaboration and government, which I'm not seeing so much from the end of the government.
Yes. Well, first of all, like I said, there are laws, but they're not being implemented or followed. This is the problem. So we need somebody to follow up. We need the government to follow up, or whoever there's a ministry for disabilities anyway. They need to follow up on all these things. Maybe check all the schools, and then um, there are some Like I remember that CDC, my late friend Dr. Atanda-Owo, he was very prominent. He's one of the first people to be involved in. Um, she had the Center for Children with Autism because her son was autistic, is autistic. So she had something she did with the government because they had what they call these starter packs that they could distribute to schools, which had certain, oh gosh, I can't remember exactly, but there's things to help to educate the children with autism, to help the teachers work with children with autism. Maybe some sort of learning devices, things like that. So there have been some attempts of that. I just think that we just need to do more of it. But a lot has been done. A lot has been done, but as I said, not enough. So I think we just need to continue in that direction. Like for instance, this month is Autism Awareness Month. Ideally, I think the government should have had at least one page in maybe all the dailies or something. Just have and address it. Oh, today is Autism Awareness Day. Put a few things about what it's about, and then tell people, support people in your community that have autism because it's not a disease, and as I said, they have the same rights as everyone else. You can't put them in a corner. You can't say, oh, you can't sit here because you're autistic or you're behaving one kind. As long as they're not attacking you or being aggressive, they have a right to be there. So it's just, I think that the government, needs to do more. We as individuals, we do more. We have an autism walk, I think, this weekend. And this week I know that there'll be activities, seminars, which we try to encourage parents to come and listen to and all that stuff. So I just think that in that regard, the government needs to do more. Implementation of the laws, and also just put out, some information on autism during that one. The same thing with Down syndromes. During Down syndrome's day or month, just put out, it's not going to cost much, although I do believe that they do have these budgets, which they probably don't use. That's what I believe.
They don't implement it. Absolutely. I agree with you. Thank you so much, Ma. Let's go on a quick break to get a word from my sponsors. When I return, the conversation will continue. Please stay with me. I'll be right back. This is Real Talk with Kike. All right, glad to know you're still right there with us. I want to welcome you back to this episode, Real Talk with Kike. If you're just tuning in, this is Real Talk, and I've been having an enlightening conversation on autism awareness, and inclusion in Nigeria with my esteemed guest, Mrs. Angela Emuwa. I hope I pronounced that properly. A passionate advocate for autism, and of course, thus far we've explored, the challenges of early diagnosis, and of course the stigma surrounding autism, and the urgent need, for stronger policies and support system. But there's still so much more to give on this conversation on Real Talk with Kike today. So up next, I will be delving into the further discussion on autism in terms of the employment opportunities for autism individuals and how Nigeria can learn from global best practices to create a more inclusive society. Again, I must say many thanks, Ma, for all that you've shared thus far, Mrs. Angela, and I must say that I wish you the very best as you continue to navigate this issue or these challenges that we have in our hands, But let me quickly use this opportunity to open the phone lines before I come to you. Remember that you can be part of this conversation by calling the number that will be showing on your screen right now. We've changed it, and we're streaming live on Facebook on Silverbird platform. Our Real Talk with Kike on Facebook have been pulled down, by all this, I don't know what to call them, but we're back now with a backup page. So please, you can be part of this conversation by joining the live show on Silverbird on Facebook. Again, many thanks, Ma, for all that you've shared thus far. So I must come to you, talking about technology, explaining to you how my page was actually brought down on Real Talk with Kike on Facebook. With technology now, Ma, when I say technology advancement, various tools and platforms have been developed, to support individuals with autism. how is technology, currently being utilized in Nigeria to aid, autism therapy and what potentials do you think, that we can actually explore with all the issue at hand right now?
Okay, so mainly the technology is, people with autism are visual learners. So a lot has to do with, teaching them visually. And then they have what they call things like augmentative and alternative communication, which is a kind of assistive technology that helps children or adults that are nonverbal to be able to communicate their needs. Because really, part of the frustration, and if there's ever aggression from a person with autism, is because they want to say what they have inside, but they can't say it, and that leads to aggression. So we have things like that. And of course, you have things like the iPad. On the iPad, they have several apps that actually focus on different areas of learning for people on children with autism. And I believe AI is, I'm not, I mean, it's still developing, but I have no doubts that if well applied and utilized, AI will come up with, a lot of solutions for people with autism. Yeah. And AI is it's not an expensive, fortunately, it's not something, once you just have the app, once you download it, once you have the app, it's not expensive and you can get anything that you want out of it. You ask any question. Okay, they can even guide you. For parents, they can give you some kind of guide. Okay, so as a parent, what can I do for my child? So and so and so, or how best can I teach him this? They will give you suggestions. So that's the sort of development in technology that I see that can support autism and other special needs.
Many thanks again for that insight. Countries like the United States have implemented comprehensive programs to support individuals with autism, including early interventions, services, inclusive education policies. What lessons, Mark, can you say that Nigeria have learned or are learning from these global models to enhance autism inclusion as in domestically? And the reason why I'm bringing this to fall is because a recent study actually highlights the significance of needs and psychological burdens faced by caregivers of children with autism in Nigeria. So what kind of support system and resources are currently available for these caregivers? And how can they improve on it?
Okay, well, first of all, I think it starts from the parents themselves. Once you have accepted that this child that you're expecting is not the kind of, is not they're not the kind of child that you have, and you just have to know that as a mother, it is your duty. I mean, instinctively, my instinct is to love my child. I don't even have any why me regrets. So I know some people will, but I think it just depends on everybody's makeup. But once you've accepted that, then you look for solutions. In terms of support, I would say you start with your family. I know some people that have family members, the family members don't accept, because if as a parent you are still feeling a bit self-conscious and you are making excuses for your child, then there might be like, you are bringing this to your child again, kind of attitude. But so you have to start from there. And by so doing, you start to develop your own community, your own support community. And give an example of my sister-in-law, my husband's sister. She's amazing. I mean, I need to go somewhere, I'll just drop. Like, she just says, okay, you can come and stay with me. She knows what he likes, and it's not that it's straightforward. It's not like he will sit in one place. He has his idiosyncrasies, but they learn to understand what it is that he does, or what his requirements are, and you go with the flow. So it's and then outside that, we have societies like, for instance, there's a group that 5 of us parents set up, Autism Parents Association International, about 10 years ago. It's not as active as we'd like it to be, but we have a very active WhatsApp group. We support each other, and on our own, we have ways of supporting. We support families with indigent children, indigent families, sorry, with children who cannot afford, and we help to support them through school. So we have programs like that. Those are the kind of support. There's an NGO called Super Parents. They deal with all disabilities, but there's supports for this. The community is so strong, such that when somebody with a child with disability goes out, and anybody tries to challenge them, they are brave enough to tell them that you're not as good as my child. You need to develop that kind of attitude. And with that kind of attitude, people around in the community will see you. And it's like at home, nobody in my house would dare. They treat my son with love because they know that, they dare not treat him otherwise. Everybody knows that, and they all love him. They all know him. They understand him, So you just need to get out there, put your children out there. And then, like I said, there are some groups and NGOs that actually do support families living with autism.
Many thanks again for that insight right there on how to navigate the issue at hand. I've come to the part where I feel that journalism intersects advocacy on autism, because the media portrayal of autism greatly influences public perception, aside the fact that your earlier submission is about even the interaction within the families and how you introduce it to them. In your own view, how accurately does Nigerian media represent autism, and what changes would you advocate for to ensure that a more realistic, supportive depiction is brought to fall? I know earlier you spoke about, if the government can actually even take a page to talk about this issue at hand, even if it's for a month, a day in a month.
Okay, well, I feel that the media itself, like for instance, April is Autism Awareness Month. I expect the media to, try and cover stories on autism, because it's actually, you would actually have quite a following. People are interested. It's an interesting, although challenging, condition. For instance, there's a young man, I'm trying to get his name, who just won the Guinness Book of Records for having the largest artwork. He's autistic. So when you bring out information like this in the media, then people will understand that, oh, okay, these people, even though they have communication problems, they have the skills. I can give the example of one of my son's classmate, Muni. He is very skilled at the piano. And then last summer, he just came across the saxophone. Like somebody was playing saxophone. He plays the saxophone now. He picked it up visually. So, we need to bring out these stories in the media. We need to share these stories. So this month, go look for parents and people with autism, even centers with autism, and put it out there, because it's an area of interest. It's an area of fascination sometimes, if you like I said, all these people coming out of nowhere. My nephew, for instance, if you give him my date of birth and the year, he will tell me what day of the month it is without looking up anything, within 5 minutes. Or no, in fact, not up to 5 minutes, maybe 2 minutes. He'll just look, and then he'll come up with the solution. So we need to highlight things like this, let people know that people with autism have special abilities, and they can be very, very useful members of society. So I think that's what it is. That's what we can do. I can't hear you. So I can't hear you.
Progress, ọganiru bụ echiche ndị be anyị. That is why when we travel beyond the land of our birth, we are not afraid to start afresh in search of our glory. Our thirst to succeed fires our passion to build empires made from hard work and determination.
From the east to overseas, the drums of triumph hail our name. This is the sound of progress. Ebubedike, nwoke n'etiti ụmụ nwoke, ịlọghachila n'ebube. Nwoke dịka ọdụm, nnọọ, bịa were ọnọdụ gị n'etiti ndị okenye. This is the life we chose. Enjoy the new taste of progress. Nwafọ tụrụ golọta.
All right, many thanks for staying with us. This is still Real Talk with Kike. Ma'am, can you hear me now, ma'am?
Yes, I can, yes.
Fantastic, fantastic. I just wanted to add to what you were just saying because one of my loyal fans, which is Ruben Abati, was just adding to your contribution, saying that, you know, the likes of Bill Gates, Elon Musk, you know, Isaac Newton, you know, are all, they all have autism, and they are doing fantastic right now in the world at large, and that there are quite a number of autistic people out there who have excelled, who are still excelling. So just to add to your insight earlier, again, many thanks for all that you've shared thus far. But quickly, this might be my last question to you before we move to the last segment of the show, which is which angle should I come from now? I want to come from the angle of the neurodiversity that is increasingly recognized as a valuable set in the workplace. You know, how can Nigerian employers, you know, create more inclusive environment that leverage the unique strengths of individuals with autism? Are there still existing success stories in this regard in Nigeria? Because with what you've shared earlier about schools, I feel like I need to bring this to fall to a work environment where we talk about great work ethics. So what's your take thus far? Secondly is that looking ahead, what are the key priorities for autism in terms of advocacy in Nigeria? How can various stakeholders, yes, you've emphasized on collaboration to drive meaningful progress in awareness in terms of acceptance and treatment and support for individuals with autism. What's your take thus far with these two questions?
Wow, that was a bit long. I'll take the first part of the employment.
Yeah.
Well, I actually am part of a trustee of a group called These Abilities, and they focus on letting people know that people with disabilities, autism, etc., are employable. Because what you need to do is to look at the skill rather than the condition. People with autism can get degrees. They can get degrees, and you know, it's just a social interaction. So the kind of jobs you would give them, maybe it's more. A lot of them work with computers, in information technology. They're very good with that, and of course, I also want to emphasize that people with autism are honest because they don't have that makeup of you know, trying to be of dishonesty. They just do things, say things as it is, and they see things as they are. So that is that's also a possibility. So like, for instance, these abilities, I was with them last some 5 years ago. There was a fair what's this Institute of Personnel Management or something, a fair in Abuja, and we attended. They had a stand there, and the idea was to tell people that, look, people with disabilities are employable. You just need to find out what skill they have. We're not saying put somebody there, you know, because you want to give them a chance, because actually the Lagos State bill insists that a certain percentage of staff that you have must you must have at least, I think it's 5% of staff with a disability. You're supposed to have that, you know. So it's not a question of just trying to put them there because they're disabled, but they must find out what skill they have, because as with all people with disabilities, you just need to find the skill. Like with my son, I know that he's good. He likes to cook. We have been at the Special Olympics before. My son has a gold medal in cycling from the Special Olympics.
Nice.
But we did that was in LA, you know. So this sort of things, you have to find out the skills, and then we let people know. NGOs like These Abilities, they focus on this area, and they will now bring this to the attention of potential employees and say, look, we have this person, this is their skill. And through one of their programs, somebody got employment. This was a young lady with cerebral palsy, but she has a degree. And I think she's been in the job for about 5 years now. And she's proven to be a valuable member of staff. So similarly with autism, you know, you can actually find jobs you can actually find useful usefulness for people with autism in your office space.
Again, many thanks for all that you've shared thus far on Real Talk with Kike today. It's been an interesting time with you, I must say. But before I let you go, there's the last segment of the show that I refer to as trending. These are trending stories that affect us all as Nigerians, as Africans. And the first trending story that caught my attention is that of the Abisola Kola-Dice's loss. You know, I want to use this platform, this medium, to just put my condolences messages out there, because this news actually eats deep. You know, I've been down since the day the news was broken, you know, and I remember how I was coming on air on Thursday when I stumbled on the news, you know, and that actually, you know, I just couldn't go on. And I remember the following day also waking up and I just broke down in tears, you know, I cried severally. Life loses its own significance, you know, sometimes when it comes to loss of some people. You know, it's truly heartbreaking to hear about the passing of Abisola Kola-Dice, you know, and the eldest daughter of the late Governor Abiola Ajimobi. So having benefited from our father's kindness, you know, his wisdom and unwavering support, you know, which was just more than a mentor to me. You know, it was one of the backbone to my corporate company, where I facilitate trainings for quite a number of, you know, organizations. He was a guide, a friend. He was so many things to me, and I just felt that, you know, he believed in me, you know, he pushed me to greater heights and was instrumental in the journey of my first book, My Unbroken, as an author. And a part of me is constantly indebted to him when I look at my book, you know, holding my book, that, you know, Senator Ajimobi was one of the people who actually pushed me here, and my heart is always full of gratitude for him. And now, just 4 years after losing him in the difficult COVID year, I remember the family is facing yet another unbearable tragedy. You know, the pain of losing a child, not to even talk of a first child, is something no mother emphasized should have to endure. I cannot begin to imagine what, you know, Her Excellency Florence Ajimobi, you know, is going through at this moment. Losing her husband was already, you know, devastating. Now the first child, with so much promise, you know, so much light, you know, is gone. Bisola was not just any woman. She was a force to reckon with, a brilliant entrepreneur, a devoted mother, a woman of grace and intelligence. You know, namely, she carried a certain radiance that made the world feel brighter. So now that the world has lost some of its color, like I would like to refer to it right now, you know, because she was up and doing unrelentingly in her business, in the careers, and has good power of character. That's another thing I think I would love to emphasize right now, because she had good relationship with quite a number of people, you know, and we often get caught up in this rush of life, you know, paying bills, you know, chasing goals, fulfilling obligations, you know, but moments like this actually reminds me, or it should remind us, that above all else, we must prioritize our health and cherish our loved ones while they are still here. Bisola fought for years, and our battle with breast cancer, like I heard, reminds us all of the, you know, the silent wars that people endure. Speaking of the fact that we have just, you know, treated, I think, health concern that makes me advocate that I just felt that, you know, I needed to bring into consciousness or bring more health consciousness to all the things I do today, especially me emphasizing on prayer, because we need to be more prayerful, more intentional about the things that truly matters in life. I pray for God's divine comfort over the Ajimobis and the Kola-Dice's families, especially the mother, our husband, and more importantly, our young children. You know, the pain is overwhelming. Even me as a person, as in, I'm overwhelmed even when it crosses my mind. So may God, in His infinite mercy, grant them strength and healing. And I can just say that, you know, end with wishing her to rest well. She will never be forgotten. Bisola will never be forgotten in the lips of Nigerians and the global stage. Ma'am, what's your take on this?
On Bisola, is that?
Yes, please.
Well, I didn't know of her as such, but it's rather sad. It's very sad. I mean, I remember when Senator Ajimobi left during the COVID time, like you said, and then I see this picture. You know, I see this on, I think it was Facebook. I first saw it, and I'm just thinking that's it must be a tough thing for the family to have to endure this yet again. And my heart goes out to them, to the Mrs. Ajimobi and the siblings, the rest of the family, and the children. May her soul rest in peace.
Let me take the last trending story, which is the killing of 16 Nigerians in Rome. And this is truly heartbreaking as well and shameful. You know, it has, in this time and age, when should we be growing as a people, building peace, learning to live together? We are still seeing this kind of barbaric killing, no matter the reason, whether for revenge or suspicion. Nobody has the right to take another person's life. How did we get to a point where human lives no longer matter to us? I really commend the governor of Edo State and of course Governor Yusuf as well for stepping in so swiftly. Their visits, their words, you know, their promises to compensate the families, you know, just shows leadership and responsibility for me. But the most important thing is justice. This cannot be another case where people are killed and life just goes on as if nothing happened. It is good to hear that yes, they've arrested certain people and they've, you know, but that is not enough. The people responsible must face the full worth of the law, if you ask me. What gives me some relief is the restraint shown by the people of Kano and the North. If they had chosen revenge or things, maybe things could have escalated into something even worse. But let's ask ourselves, if this had happened to Nigerians outside our borders, wouldn't we all be calling for justice? We would cry out and demand protection for our people and even threaten war, but now we are doing this to ourselves. This is just a big shame. We need to ask ourselves, where is our humanity? Why are we still acting this way in 2025? A society that allows people to take the laws into their own hands. Destroying ourselves, or I don't know, an eye for an eye will only leave all of us blind. If we cannot tolerate one another, if we cannot allow the world to take its course, then what makes us even better than animals? I'm sorry, but I'm just trying to keep it real. This incident just should never have happened. But now, this is where we are. We must learn from it. Justice must be served. And as a people, we need to change our mindsets. No life should be wasted like this again. May the souls of the victims, you know, rest in peace. May God comfort their families. This is not just about paying compensation. It's about also making sure that this never happens again. Ma'am, quickly, I don't know if you saw this trending on socials. What's your take on it in a minute?
Well, as usual, this kind of thing is tragic and it's so painful because a lot of times the perpetrators don't get brought to justice. So you've said it all, really. I mean, there's nothing that justifies the brutal killing of people in that way. Nothing justifies it. I don't know how people become so. When you think of the fact that these people were once babies, you know, you just wonder how people just grow up and become so you know, wayward. So, as you have said, I think the government just needs to make sure that they do the investigations and bring the perpetrator to book and find ways of ensuring that this thing doesn't happen again. Because where these people came from, there must be some indication by now that, okay, these people are coming from here. I know it's not easy, but they owe it to the citizens who elected them to keep them safe. And yeah, it's sad, but and as you said, may their souls rest in peace.
Many thanks, man. Many thanks for lending your voice on issues that affect us all. With that, we've come to the end of this episode of Real Talk with Kike today. Indeed, we had an awesome show on Real Talk. Courtesy, you are a resourceful guest. This is Angela the chairlady of Punch Nigerian Limited. Many thanks for continually lending your voice on issues that affect us all. When you said earlier that you are not a journalist, for being the chairlady and being a journalist, you are a journalist by default. Thank you so much, Ma, for holding that touch of of professionalism, and of course, when it comes to impacting people's lives on the global stage. Again, I wish you the very best as you continue to navigate your personal life and of course your career path. My name remains Kikelomo Atanda-Owo Abati. Till I come your way on Thursday, remain kind to one another. Bye now.